I grew up in a family that my father was a janitor. He used to be a farmer, a dairy farmer in the Harvard, Illinois area. And then he became a janitor after the Depression because of the loss of the farm. I remember when I was a child, when I got to be about 5 or 6 years old, I used to see him with this little book every day. And that book, he'd start to work on it. And he worked from 4:30 in the morning until 6:30 at night. And I'd always say to him, Dad, what are you doing with the book? He says, I'm just adding it. But what he was doing is trying to find out day after day after day where we sat with the family budget. He did that for as long as I lived in the house. Every day trying to figure out what the family budget was going to look like. So if he knew he needed to find another job, he could do that as far as take on another residential building to care for. And my mother was a stay-at-home mom. Back in those days, it was something that you could actually do. My father worked hard enough to do that. And he did that to make sure that we had a mother at home. Today's society has changed. And so when I'm asked about why I'm running today, I'm running because of the families of Congressional District 1, the businesses of Congressional District 1, a dysfunctional government that I believe has to change. I've always had a history of working with people, not against people. I believe leadership starts by unifying. And my experience at the legislature was one of bringing people together. I was a Republican at the legislature. I am a Democrat today. I was a Republican because those were basically what I thought would be the best way to work on the issues that face society at the time. But after working on education issues, child protective service issues, and issues across the spectrum on business issues, I saw that in 2008 and 2009, when this legislature had to cut the budget, I knew that. The federal government had to cut the budget. We all knew that. But I've never seen a business. I've got from a business also. I'm a former Chicago police officer. I had my own business as a consultant. I've never seen where people go and cut across the board, affecting every critical element of our society and the potential of our society to move forward in a constructive manner after a downturn in the economy. You can't take the politically expedient way out. You must take the way out and take the time to analyze where we need to go into the future. And that's what was done at the state and federal level in 2007, 2008 crisis. Budgets were in 2009, 2010. And we're all going to get up and dance now. And that's my 3 minutes. And I think we have to change that government to the betterment of people, and we're going to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll do the dance off later. We'll see how that goes.
Right. Well, Cassia Grande here is my hometown. This is my county, and I can tell you the Pinell Partnership has proven it has a lot of power and authority here. And Jordan, I don't know how you all did it, but you got my opponent to show up here today. And the reason why I say this, I chatted with Miguel Olivas, who was a Democrat who ran for Congress against my opponent. And he refused to debate him the entire campaign. We had a debate, Christian Price, the mayor of Maricopa City. The Maricopa Chamber of Commerce held a forum for the public to understand where we stand on the issues that are important. Jobs, the economy, infrastructure. Mayor, you talked about widening the I-10. And you've got to show up. This is the most important job interview. 2 other debates, Marana Chamber of Commerce, he's declined. Sedona, where he's from, he's declined. We need a healthy debate. And the reason why, you know me. You may disagree with me in style, in the past, in the position that I may have taken, but you know where I stand. You know that I'm a fighter. You know that I will put our safety of our local communities, of our nation first. I'm the only military veteran in this race. I served 20 years. in the military. I see Colonel Stubbs who's here. And I want to thank all of our veterans who have served our country so honorably. There's 40,000 of us in this district, and the VA has failed our veterans and their families with the promised care. I want to talk about jobs in the economy. We have coal. And some people here in Pinell County says coal. They don't realize we have significant coal mining operations in this district. And we have 4 coal-fired generating stations in Arizona that generate the electricity. They use the coal to generate the electricity. They're all in this district with 3,000 jobs connected to it. Now, what we need to know is the truth. You know where I stand. I will fight for coal. I will fight to protect those jobs. And my opponent says one thing to some in the media, and then he goes to another meeting, and he tells them just the opposite. Folks, these are the most important issues. So you know where I stand. As a Republican, he was fired from his job as a legislator because he voted. I see a couple of the supervisors here. You thought you had issues with me because you cut my budget 8%. He increased the state budget by 64%. Folks, this is, if you think back under Governor Napolitano, with the huge deficits that we had. Governor Brewer told me this, watch out for this guy. And that's why he was fired by the voters. And then became an independent, ran again and wasn't hired. And the week he runs for Congress, he becomes a Democrat. And he's got to be the only guy that's ever gone from being against Obamacare to now supporting it. So we've got to find out really where candidates stand. You know where I stand, and you'll know what I'll do. I'll always fight for us and put America and our country first, always. Thank you.
Thank you both. And Senator, do you want to respond to some of that?
I would love to. I did increase the budget. There's no doubt about it. Over an 8-year period, we increased the budget for a certain purpose. We increased the budget so we could invest in the economy of Arizona. In our university, we funded our schools. We made sure Child Protective Services was fully funded. We paid $2 billion back money necessary to maintain our schools that were needed because in the 1990s, under some of the best economies, we didn't do that. We paid in over $600 million in a lawsuit from 1991 that the legislature hadn't taken care of. We invested in Arizona. I don't think there was any investment that we made that was made for the purpose other than improving the future of our children, the future of our families, and the economic diversity of Arizona. A new med school in Phoenix, the light rail, the research buildings at our universities, the improvement of our community college campuses. All of these were for workforce development and other issues that are important. You have to invest. You can't just sit back and wait for the rest of the country to move away from you. And so those are the investments that we made. And I would do them again because I think they were the right thing for the families of Arizona, families of Congressional District 1 for sure, and for the future of our children.
Thank you. And Sheriff, do you want to respond?
Well, I can tell you folks, you just heard it here. This is his promise. This is a recipe for disaster for the future of our country. If you have a problem with deficit spending at the federal level now, what do you think is going to happen? Somebody who's unabashed and voting for a 64% increase in our state budget. There's a reason why Governor Ducey is supporting me, Senator McCain, Senator Flake, former Governor Brewer. We know you can't spend more than you have. The deficit that our state had per capita was worse than California. Remember how awful California was? So if you have somebody, the last person we could send to Washington at a time we have a $20 trillion deficit is somebody who gives all these reasons why we should continue to vote for everything. We have to limit our spending, set priorities. Heck, Todd House told me himself, Paul, we can't afford. Wait till the economy improves. We'll get you more deputies. Today, in our sheriff's office, we have 52 vacancies. Not because Todd and other supervisors don't care about law enforcement while our population grows, while the demands have increased, but because we don't have the money. And this is where we have to cut the regulation, reduce taxation. Here, there is a better way for our country. And this is what I will sign up for. I will be a vote for reducing regulation, reducing taxation, bringing it to 3 lower tax brackets. That's how we're going to grow our economy, not by government spending our way into prosperity. That's proven it doesn't work, folks. And I want to hear, before this debate ends, where Mr. O'Halloran stands on coal. Because this is not just about the jobs, billions and billions in positive economic impact. Who here pays for electricity? Everybody. The #1 customer for this electricity up north is CAP. Who delivers the water to Pinell County? For our agriculture, for our farms, for us to drink. The rates for electricity are estimated to go up at least 30%, and you're going to have increases in water as well at a time we can least afford it. That's wrong for our economy, and I want an answer of that today.
Do you want to answer that today?
I'll answer that today as part of a larger question, I hope. I do want to say this. Our country, I mean, I cut budgets when I was in the legislature, 2001, 2002, 2008. I had no problem cutting budgets appropriately. I cut taxes, and I wasn't the one that was acknowledged by the Arizona Republic as fiscally irresponsible. It was my opponent. I wasn't the one that continued to come before the Board of Supervisors in this county and ask for more and more and more money, and not live within his budget. And you know, we either start to understand that we have to invest in the future. I heard just earlier the mayor say we need to widen I-10. That takes money. That takes investment. That's something I believe we need to do. Are you going to say that we're just going to continue to depress the ability of America to invest in its economy and invest in its future? Or are we going to actually turn around and start to work towards that process and have a discussion as a public? But this whole concept that all you need to do is cut, we've done that. I voted for one of the largest tax cuts in Arizona history, $500 million for individuals. I voted for property tax cuts. I voted for tax cuts for our veterans and for veterans' families. We need to understand it's a balanced approach to moving forward, working together, not attacking one another on a consistent basis in a legislative process that is tearing people apart instead of bringing people together. It's working with people together to move forward. It's not just about political posturing in order to make sure that you get elected. I'm going to look at you and tell you exactly what I'm going to do. But the bottom line again is we have to do it together.
One more response. How's that?
Well, I can tell you the truth of the matter. This is a core service of the government, the sheriff's office, because half of the people live in unincorporated Pinell County, so we're the cops. You know the demands have increased. Just this year specifically, there was an 8% budget cut between last year and this year because there isn't the revenue. Doug Wolf is here. He'll tell you $5 million a year less was collected because of the property values. And then you hear these answers that we've got to invest. It's the government's the solution. Well, the truth of the matter is, even this year, with that massive cut, we had a surplus in the sheriff's office. That's the truth. And so if you want to send somebody who has a history of making tough decisions, prioritizing the needs of our country, like the military, at a time where our national security is threatened, our government is falling down on the job. And we have the FBI who's not even talking to Ahmed when his father says, this guy's a terrorist. Doesn't even interview this guy. We need leaders who not just have a law enforcement background, but have a military background. I've served a tour in Iraq. That will have a stronger military to protect our country, both in local communities and nationally. And that's what I'll do, and we can do it while spending within our means. Because it clearly hasn't worked. We got $20 trillion in debt, and it has compromised our economic future. That's got to stop. We need a better way. And I think a lot of you here, being in the business sector, understand the government's not the solution. It's the private sector. It's small business that creates jobs. And another answer we need, I mentioned before, the only guy who's gone from being against Obamacare to now supporting it, Pinell County's the poster child. We were without a health care provider through the Affordable Care Act, through Obamacare, until through this government mandate, a 51% subsidy. 14 of Arizona's 15 counties only has one provider. That's not access to competition and affordability. The false promises of if you want your doctor, you can keep him. It's a complete lie. Government intervention has to be reined in and pulled back, not an expansion of the executive authority that is promoted by my opponent. Thank you.
All right, I think I'm going to move out of the middle of this. But let me ask you this, Senator and Sheriff, let's talk about a time where and this is like a job interview, right? So as an employer, something that I frequently ask is, when was a time where you worked really well with a team, right? When did you have a good experience like that? Can you tell us something about that? You want to take that first? All right, Sheriff?
I can tell you certainly, in many regards, when you look at the military, we have to operate as a team. And when you move out, I've had the privilege 20 years to serve, and I went from a private, worked my way up to a major. And this is where we have the strongest military in the world right at this time. And it's not just because of borders. You have to get people on the same sheet of music and working together. Working with partnerships that are here. I know Brandy, who's here. She's the director of the Home of Hope, one of the supervisors for battered women and women with children who have what you may appear at first to be a broken life. And we've partnered with them in the Sheriff's Office to support them in many ways to restore lives of victims with children. I see my friends Adam and Anthony Cordova, who head up in Coolidge. So this is Casa Grande, this is Coolidge. They reach out to the youth in our community. I have partnered with our youth. I'm a protector of our youth, and have been. And they do such a fantastic job of taking kids, many at risk, and mentor them. And they're faith-based. And so we at the Sheriff's Office partner with so many community groups here, while my opponent, instead of the Nancy Pelosi super PAC introducing him, as he's trying to do here today, they attack me. And that's the negative politics on personal character issues rather than issues of substance. And so I appreciate both of these groups for the work you do in our community. And I'm proud of our partnership and working together. And that's what I've done as a sheriff for the past 8 years.
Who are you calling Nancy Pelosi?
You must know something I don't know. Anyway, working together, that was the hallmark of my work in the legislature. Whatever issue you talk about down there, if we were going to get a tax cut passed, if we were going to get education funded, and I'll bring up one example, Child Protective Services. I led a group at the legislature of moderate Republicans to work with Democrats because leadership did not want to reform Child Protective Services. They wanted to wait in the future while their children were being impacted, were being killed, were having sexual abuse in the home, drug addiction in the home that had impacts on the children. And the end result was that after 53 days of a special session, my leadership came to me and they said, Tom, you have to stop working with the Democrats because we don't want this to happen. We don't want this bill to go through. And they gave me a choice. They said, you either stop it, or if you don't, we're going to take your chairmanship away. I had an easy choice there. Children go before chairmanships. So I told them, take my chairmanship away. And we did pass that bill. And we went on for the next 5 years to appropriately fund education. And so, and that's because we worked together. And I took a leading role in that and many other issues to move Arizona forward. And while we're on the discussion of answering questions, if my opponent wants to cut taxes more and do all this other stuff, which I have a history of tax cuts. I'd like to hear from him how he's going to fund Veterans Affairs, how he's going to fund our military, how he's going to fund infrastructure, how he's going to fund education, and all the other issues that we've been putting in abeyance the last number of years, and how we're going to move Arizona forward and America forward without being able to invest in the future of America and the future of our children and the opportunity our children have in the future.
You want to take that?
Absolutely. Well, I still haven't had an answer to my question about coal. Did you hear that if he's going to protect jobs and protect coal? Did you hear that? I haven't heard that.
We'll talk about
So that's important because it's about our economy. Certainly, the way to grow our economy and to end deficit spending is not through taxing your way out of it. That's not the solution. And here, the biggest issue for this district, because it affects all of us, it's not just those thousands of people in Navajo and Apache County that work at those generating stations, that are the coal miners, that are the train conductors and engineers. Heard my opponent, by the way, say that he doesn't trust the Republicans to clean the pollution in the environment, so he supports the clean power plant. So I want answers because he said something else very public to newspapers that, well, he wants to protect coal, wants to protect jobs. This affects us because of the electricity, the cost to do business, to locate here. And we don't have the capacity to transition to natural gas. We're at 100% capacity in 4 years. More on that later. Setting priorities in the budget. And this is where we're going to grow our economy, not tax our way out of it. And this is the priorities that we have, absolutely. In generating business, changing the tax code, that literally the trillions of dollars that is offshore, to bring that back here to the United States, to create an environment. Instead of these proposals by Hillary Clinton, now the death tax, she's looking to increase when you die and you have a farm or if you have a business, now it's not 40, 50, it's 65% is her proposal. Folks, this is socialism. What happened to the America when I'm the 10th of 11 children and my dad, who worked at the electric company, we didn't envy to the point where we saw somebody who had a nice house or a nice car and said, that's what's wrong with America, and these are bad people. No, he said, my dad said and my mom said, you too could be him or her through hard work, through innovation, and getting the government out of the way. And those are our founding principles. That's the way to grow our economy. That's how we get more revenue. Not all these priorities, though legitimate, we can't afford them. And this is where we have to have a balanced budget. I pointed out the county. They have to have a balanced budget. The state has to have a balanced budget. I want 52 more staff that we had 9 years ago when I was elected, when the county was much smaller, but we can't afford it. We may have discussions and arguments because I'm the sheriff. I have to make that case. That's what you expect me to do. And as a representative, I will fight for our jobs and our economy. That's what I expect the representative to do, is represent the people. And so the most important issues, if we're not going to fight for it, and about the EPA and their regulations and rulemaking, these aren't laws. And forest health, how they're coming in, literally, in the name of protecting the environment, are literally killing it. 20% of our forests have been burned in the last 12 years. These are district issues, folks. And we need to hear about those things, to push back, to have an advocate that's going to fight for these issues.
You want to talk a little bit?
Sure I do. I didn't hear an answer. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what taxes you're going to cut and how you're going to reinvest in America. I heard a lot of political dialogue. I'll answer the coal question, but I also want to also ask you, if you're so fiscally responsible, how do you take funding from the county or RICO funds, fly over 20 of your deputies, spend $53,000 in St. Louis, when you usually took 1 or 2 people there a year in order to have you watch them, you receive an award. You know, talk about fiscal irresponsibility. That's all about you, not about the funds of the people of this county and federal funds that were misused. The bottom line here is this. I have gone all over this district to newspapers, to different groups that are the representatives and the workers within those coal mines and within those power plants, and made the statement clear. I will not vote to close any one of those power plants. I will make sure that the EPA regulatory environment is one that takes into account the needs of our communities. I am in favor of the national energy policy. I don't think the current administration nor prior administrations did the appropriate job in dealing with our future of power that's needed in our country. I am for renewable energy, but not at the cost of jobs that will affect, are the best jobs in our district, that will affect our families, that will hurt our school districts, that will potentially hurt our electricity supply in Arizona and the Southwest. It would be irresponsible of anybody that was going to be a congressperson in Congressional District 1 to do anything other than that. And if you make decisions based on policy instead of rhetoric, that's the answer you come to. We are going to need more power and energy, but we can't take the most dependable power we have offline until we find other resources. We are going to need clean air, but we are not going to do it at the expense of America first, and then have China build a new coal generation plant every week or 2 weeks. This is a worldwide problem, and it has to be done in a way that takes into account the families of America first, the business needs of America, and finally making sure that the EPA regulatory system takes into account everybody that's going to be impacted, not just the chosen few.
Do you two really differ on that at all? How?
Well, if you listen carefully, trying to play both sides of that I support the people who work there and their jobs, but I support the administration's energy plan. The energy plan, folks, what comes from this is it kills coal. Remember, President Obama said the top national security concern for him is not ISIS. He announced this in Paris. Remember this? It wasn't ISIS, it wasn't terrorism, it wasn't an unsecured border with Mexico. It was global warming. There's an agenda here. And so when you support that plan, there's consequences. It means thousands of jobs get lost. It means if you pay $200 a month for your electric, guess what? It's going to go up $60 at a time we can least afford it. 95 million Americans are out of work, and he's trying to find more ways to spend money. How about trying to find ways to get these people back to work and to create jobs and strengthen our economy? And when you look here, you want to talk about this hypocritical ethics plan that my opponent has brought out. Well, look at his record. He'd like to talk about other things. Talk about withholding pay if they don't pass a budget. Look at the budgets that he has passed. 64% increase. Not 6 or 10 or 50%. 64% increase. And he complained the very first month he was in office about pay, that he wasn't paid enough. He knew what the pay was when he got in there. And then, talk about racking up expenses. He had $100,000 in expenses, just for himself. Here at the sheriff's office, when you talk about RICO money, there's a reason. The sheriffs before me have taken RICO money. They're trying to make like this is some partisan thing or something I've done. Sheriff Vasquez, Sheriff Vanderpool, the Boys and Girls Club. Craig, you know, you're on the board. The mayor's on the board. Vanderpool, a Democrat sheriff, started that. And Vasquez continued it, and I did. And all these groups right here, the Boys and Girls Club in our county. And this is where you should come out against the Pelosi super PAC that has put on these ads, the DCCC, saying that there's all these allegations, and he has pictures of these groups, the Boy Scouts of Pinell County receiving a check like they did something wrong. We haven't had an aggressive, to this degree, a sheriff's office go against the cartels. These aren't even mainly local criminals. These are the Sinaloa cartel, evidenced by the largest drug bust in the history of Arizona was led by our deputies. $3 billion. That's where this money comes from. It wasn't taxpayers' money, because we have less. I pointed that out. We had a surplus this year. Those are good things. I'm going to stand here with pride the fact that we brought the heaviest hand of enforcement against the worst criminals in the Western Hemisphere, and we're partnering with groups like Brandy, protecting women, protecting children, partnering with Anthony and Adam, and groups like that. The two high schools here in my town of Casa Grande, when they have a graduation lock-in. And to say that there's something, which group do you not want me to give to? This isn't taxpayer money, it's criminal money. And guess who makes the laws? The legislature, the federal government. And they require a minimum in the state, 25% is the guideline to partner with these groups. That's $1.2 million over 8 years as sheriff that we've partnered. Many of the same groups that the Democrat sheriffs before me. In fact, the Democrat county attorney, Jim Walsh, praised this for himself, saying this is one of the highlights of his career, partnering with these groups. I don't even have control over that spending. In fact, I have to write a letter to the fiduciary, who's the county attorney or the attorney general. They approve that. That's the response to that.
Senator George.
We got wires going all over the place. What group do you not want me to give to? I think all those groups are worthwhile to give to, and that's why I work to make sure we had domestic shelters and then children's health care and all these other elements when I was in the legislature. I fought for those issues year after year after year. And we produced a balanced budget each and every year in a Republican legislature. I wasn't the only one that voted for those budgets. We voted for it in the Republican legislative process. And so the idea that we didn't have balanced budgets, in fact, most of those years we had surpluses, and we carried them over into future years. And our tax cuts also aid in to the additional spending that you talked about, the way the budgetary process works. So this whole concept that I'm some big spender from the legislative district 1 when I was in the legislature is just not true. And it gets back to the same issue. I have no problem with the expenditures for RICO funds for those. I have problems with the expenditure for RICO funds for trips to St. Louis, for political campaigning, and for many other issues that are under current investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation. A subpoena has been issued, and that is a problem. And so that is what I have a problem with. And I think that when you look into what's being talked about up here, I hear Mr. Bagu's stump speech, political talk, instead of let's talk about the real issues that we're facing. Let's really deal with what you want to hear from us. But this whole concept that there was unlimited spending going on in the legislature, we have a constitutional cap. We never approached that cap. We stayed under that cap each and every year. Cut taxes and invest it in the future. I have a plan. I have a jobs plan. That plan, along with the ethics plan, is out there. Yes, I do believe that if we don't reach a budget by October 31st of each and every year in Congress, we shouldn't get paid. That is our job. Primary job of Congress. Do a budget. And if it takes you 6 months and you don't get paid, you don't get to claw it back. You've lost that money. Give yourself a little incentive to get your job done. And it goes on and on. Reform our campaign disclosure system. Make sure that we the citizens of America are being treated equally than the people that don't even have to report millions of dollars of campaign contributions. I have no problem with any of that stuff. That's in my ethics plan. That's why I think we bring trust and transparency back into government. Not tell reporters that they can't come in to meetings because they reported something in the news that the sheriff didn't like. I would never turn a reporter back. That's your voice to us. That's the way you hear about, get the questions asked that you might want to have asked. Not to have somebody refuse. You can't come to my public building and go to my press conference as a reporter. That's not right. That's not the American way. We have an open system of government. And so hopefully we can get into some questions now.
So I'm really just here to separate any physical punches, right? That's it. I'm just here like that. That's my deal. Let me ask